Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Homes at Home, where we explore the Great Lakes from the comfort of our home. My name is Megan Goss, and I work for Michigan Sea Grant and Michigan State University Extension here in the Saginaw Bay region of Michigan, and I'm here to introduce our homes. As we've learned in past weeks, HOMES is an acronym to remember our Great Lakes. And today we're going to be introducing our homes by the number of fish species in each lake. We'll be going from the lake with the least amount of fish species to the lake with the most amount of fish species. And when I say fish species, I don't mean the number of fish in each lake, but the number of different kinds of fish in each lake. So we're going to begin with guessing which lake has the least amount of fish species. This is a tongue twister. Any guesses at home? Shout it out. Yes, it's Lake Superior with 83 species. Next, we have the fourth lake. Any guesses? Lake Huron with 117 species. Next, we have our third lake. Guess at home. It's Lake Ontario with 119 species. For second place, we have Lake Erie with 129 species. And that leaves Lake Michigan with 136 species. You can learn all about the different types of fish in our Great Lakes from the Life of the Lake series, which you can find on the Michigan Sea Grant bookstore. As we've learned in our past Homes at Home episodes, the Great Lakes Basin support a lot of biodiversity. In fact, more than 3,500 plants and animals, different species of them, call the Great Lakes Basin home. And in our past Homes at Home episodes, we've explored a lot of these different plants and animals, including the chickadee. We learned all about this bird in Bird Ventures, where we learned that there are 140 different types of birds that are dependent on coastal habitat in Michigan and across the Great Lakes Basin. And this bird, the chickadee, can survive year-round in Michigan. We also learned about the lake sturgeon, which is a fish that's been around since the time of the dinosaurs. This fish is threatened, and it takes about 15 to 20 years to get to adulthood. There's also the mud puppy. The mud puppy serves as an early warning system for environmental issues. And in Michigan, it's a species of concern. You will be covering mud puppies in a future Homes at Home. We hope you tune into that. There are also a lot of important plants across the Great Lakes Basin, including milkweed. Milkweed serves as an important food for pollinators like monarch butterflies and bees and hummingbirds. And we'll be exploring a lot about biodiversity and different types of ways that you can contribute and collect data and help scientists better understand biodiversity in the Great Lakes Basin. But I won't be introducing the topic to you. Instead, a colleague from Minnesota Sea Grant will be sharing how you can get involved in the Great Lakes BioBlitz. So with that, take it away, Marty.
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Marty Kitson, and I'm an extension educator at Minnesota Sea Grant. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about the Great Lakes BioBlitz and how you can get involved. So the Great Lakes BioBlitz. First of all, it'd be good to know what a BioBlitz is. So a BioBlitz is an event that records biodiversity. The goal of any BioBlitz is to find and identify as many living organisms as possible in an area over a certain time period. But what is biodiversity? Well, biodiversity is simply the variety of living things that are found in a given area. An area that has a lot of variety has high biodiversity, and an area that has little variety has low biodiversity. Here within the Great Lakes and its watershed, a broad diversity of life is supported. But why is biodiversity important? Well, biodiversity supports recreation and tourism. For example, people enjoy fishing, but not everyone enjoys fishing for the same kind of fish all of the time. A fisher person may want to try to catch walleye or lake trout, or maybe northern pike. Additionally, biodiversity is important because it can protect some areas from natural disasters. An example of this is flooding. As you see in this picture here, there are tree roots that are exposed on the bank of a river. The water in the river is looking a little brown and muddy, and it looks like more than likely soil has washed off into that river. This is because there's only the one sort of tree root that you can see. Can you imagine how it might be different if there were other kinds of plants that were also growing there? Perhaps some flowers or some shrubs or other plants that have tiny, smaller roots whose roots act like fingers and sort of hold that soil in place. Biodiversity is also important because it can provide us with medicine. A really good example of this is the tree bark from a willow tree. This is where aspirin came from. Biodiversity is also important because species depend on one another for survival. Examples of this is the relationship between flowering plants and pollinators. Here you see a variety of both flowering plants and the animals that pollinate them. So now is quiz time for you viewers at home. There are two areas represented here, Area A and Area B. Which area has the most biodiversity? So our viewers think that Area A has the most biodiversity. That is correct. Area A has the greatest variety and therefore the greatest biodiversity. So now that we know a little bit about biodiversity and bioblitzes, you might be wondering where the bioblitz is taking place and also how you can become involved. The BioBlitz will be taking place in each Great Lakes state and also in Ontario, Canada. So another thing that you can do at home, if you are an educator or a parent who is perhaps supporting education in your home, is take a little bit of time to hypothesize where you think the most observations may come from. Considerations to make are latitude, geographic location, or perhaps climate. You can talk amongst the folks at home and sort of get an idea of where you think the most observations will be made. So now that we know where the BioBlitz is taking place, it's also really important to know when it's taking place. It will take place for 4 weeks and it will kick off on Earth Day, which is April 22nd. It will run until May 20th, which is the 141st day of the year. And also coincidentally, it's National Juice Slush Day. So I encourage all of our viewers after a hard month of BioBlitzing to celebrate the conclusion of the BioBlitz by creating their favorite flavor of juice slush. So one of the tools that we can use in order to participate in the BioBlitz is a website called iNaturalist. This is a place where you can create an account, or if you have one, you can use your existing account. In order to do this, you either log in or sign up. All you need is an email address and it is free. Once you sign up and you get an account, you will have an account page that looks like this. I will highlight for you 4 different sections of the account page, which can be useful for the BioBlitz. The first is the Observations tab. Once you start entering images into your iNaturalist account, this is where your observations will be kept. Additionally, if you are an educator or a parent who is supporting education in your home, iNaturalist does have a journaling feature. The third place that's important to note is that there is a project tab as well. Now, in the beginning, you won't have any projects of which you are a member. However, I encourage you to become a member of your Great Lakes State BioBlitz and also for the overarching Great Lakes project as well. I'll show you a picture of what that looks like in a minute. In order to find that, first on iNaturalist, you simply use the search icon and type in the name of the project that you are looking for. If you live in Minnesota, you would search for the Minnesota BioBlitz with the CGLL in parentheses. This is the landing page for the project for the entire state of Minnesota. At the time of this screenshot, the BioBlitz was to begin in 6 days. Once this kicks off, observations, the number of observations, the number of species, The number of people who are helping identify species and also the number of observers will be recorded for the entire state. This project, the Great Lakes BioBlitz, takes the information from all of the different states and populates it into one project. So not only can you take a look at how your state is doing in the BioBlitz, you can also check out how other states are doing in the BioBlitz. Once the BioBlitz begins, the observations will start rolling in. So in order to make observations, there are some things that you can keep in mind that make it easy in your own yard or other open space. And now we have a short video to share with you about making observations. Now that we know a little bit about the Great Lakes BioBlitz, biodiversity, and the iNaturalist app, it's time to take our observation skills outside and see what we can find. Making observations this time of year can be tricky because it's spring and everything isn't lush and green. However, with a good, sharp eye, there are plenty of things to take a look at. While we're making observations, it's important to note that we don't always need to see the wild living thing. We can also see what's called sign of a wild living thing. So if you find animal tracks, or if you find scat, or if you find some other sign that an animal has been there, you can take a photo of that. It all counts. So here, we do not see an alive, wild, living thing. But look at this branch here. Do any of the viewers at home have an idea what's happened? It looks like bark has been removed from this twig. I wonder if it was somebody's meal. So here's another example of animal sign in the yard. Look at that hole. Can you see that? And look here. Here is another sign of something that is digging in my yard. Do you think that this hole and the hole that we observed in the last set are different? In addition to making observations, another helpful thing is that there are a couple of tools that can be used. And I will show you what some of those tools are. So the first tool is really simple. You carry it with you all the time. Sometimes you simply need a hand in order to help make high quality observations. Additionally, you can download the iNaturalist app and use a phone. You can actually take images right within the iNaturalist app and it will automatically go up into your project if your GPS is on. I prefer actually to use a simple point and shoot camera. And the reason I do that is because of one of the tips that I'm going to share with you later. Sometimes when you're taking a look at images, it's a little hard to tell what size it is once it's in a photograph. And so another simple tool that you can use at home is simply a ruler. I like this one because not only does it have the standard unit of measure, but it also has the metric system on it. And of course, if you don't have one of those, you can probably just find a tape measure. So now that we've talked a little bit about the tools for making observations, there are two tips that I'd like to share with you for making them. The first one is for close-up pictures. Sometimes your camera doesn't want to focus on something that is really close up. And so one of the tips that I have is that you simply hold your hand behind whatever it is you're trying to take a picture of, and then the camera actually focuses on your hand. This can be really good, and it's actually the reason why I enjoy using a point and shoot camera, is it allows me to have one hand for putting behind the image and or behind the item, and then the other hand for operating the camera. The other tip that I'd like to share is about size reference, which is where the ruler or the tape measure, or even just another item of known size can be used for reference. An example of when this is useful is in a case like this. You can see this image that I have of what looks like a track, but can you really tell much about the track? Is it one footprint or is it multiple footprints? And how big is it? All of that information is useful if you're trying to make a guess on what animal made the track. Now we have a little bit more information. Once you put the tape measure up there, you can see that it's actually a pretty small animal. And this is actually a set of 4 tracks, so 2 front paws and 2 hind paws, and they really only span about 4 inches. Does anyone have a guess of what this kind of animal can be? I'll show you a picture of it here in a second. So these tracks were made by one of our Northwoods friends, the red squirrel. I'd also like to share with you a couple of other good things to know when participating in the BioBlitz. First off, if you do choose to use iNaturalist to do this, it will help you identify images, so you don't need to be an expert in what it is that you are trying to identify. Additionally, if you are working with a large group of youth, such as if you are a teacher, there's a couple of other recommendations just for you. One of them is that I recommend creating only one iNaturalist account and then share the password and the username with your students. This will relieve them of the burden of creating their own account, and it will let you maintain some control about the types of images that are being taken. There are some images that aren't appropriate for iNaturalist. iNaturalist is about cataloging wild living things. So we don't want pictures of cats or dogs or houseplants in there. Additionally, there is the journal feature that you can use with students or with your youth. With that particular feature, if you have multiple people who are sharing an account, it's a good idea to have them write their name next to their journal entry so you know which journal entry belongs to which person. The other really important tip is that it's important to have your geolocation services or your GPS turned on your phone. And some point and shoot cameras also have this ability. The reason this is important is because that data is also uploaded into iNaturalist, so it knows which project that image is supposed to go to. If you're a little concerned about the GPS services, I do want to share that iNaturalist is very good about obscuring that information so people only get a general sense of where the picture was taken. Another way of saying it is if you take a bunch of pictures in your yard, people in iNaturalist don't know where you live. This is done for 2 reasons. One, it's done for personal safety, and the other reason it's done is also to protect endangered or rare species that photographs are taken of. So with that, as with any homes at home, it is indeed challenge time now. And so I encourage all of our listeners to help your Great Lakes state or province make the most observations. There are other personal challenges that you can also make. And this time we can roll them out by week, since this is actually a 4-week project. The first one in week 1 is just to make 5 observations. And while of course some people can use iNaturalist, it's not required that you use iNaturalist to participate in this. Making observations is something that you can do with all of your senses, not only sight. I also encourage you to go outside and just listen and hear what kind of birds may be calling. I also encourage you to maybe smell and see what else you might be able to pick up on. So those are other ways that you can make observations that don't require iNaturalist at all. For week 2, you can observe 1 bird and 1 other animal. In week 3, you could observe at least one non-native species. This will give you time to think about what a non-native species is and maybe learn about the non-native species that are in your area. In week 4, you can observe a wild living thing that is not a bird, a plant, or another animal. If you need a hint, I can share one with you. One of the things that you could look for, you need to look close to the ground and look carefully, is for lichen or fungi. You can learn about those and then go make some observations. And so with that, we are done with this BioBlitz presentation. I thank you for your time.
This is Geneva tuning in from Ann Arbor, and I've got some questions from all of you that I'm going to pass on to Marty. Well, first I'm going to start with a comment. Erin let us know that if you are outside making observations, trying to maybe take a photo or show people how big something is, a piece of paper that comes out of a printer is also a really good sort of standard size. It's 8.5 inches by 11 inches. And so if you're trying to show somebody how big a tree is, maybe you can hold up a piece of paper by it. That'll show how big it is. We got a question from Jennifer. Can you do more than 1 project in iNaturalist at a time?
Yes, you can do more than 1 project. You can join as many projects as you want. Another piece that might be important to consider is you can also create more than one account. And so if you want an account, say for a class, and you want to share that username and password with all of your students, you may also be interested in keeping track of your own observations that are just yours in a separate account.
Excellent. And can you remind us how you find this particular project in iNaturalist?
Yes. So you can go up to the search icon on the iNaturalist page. I can share that with you again. So this page here shows you the different names. So if you're in the state of Illinois, for example, you would just search Illinois BioBlitz, and then with the parentheses CGLL, that acronym stands for the Center of Great Lakes Literacy. And then the other project that you want to become a member of is this overarching project, the Great Lakes BioBlitz, because that will allow you access to this image here so you can see how other states are doing. And then it will also allow you to see how your specific state is doing when you're a member of that BioBlitz for your state. The way that you look for that is you just click the search icon here.
Awesome. Thank you for that reminder. And if people need to get a refresher on how to access these, we will have this video up on YouTube in a couple of days, and you can always go back and rewatch parts of it to figure out how to get to the parts of the website you need to find.
And Geneva, this is Megan. I just logged into the iNaturalist website, and as I started to type in Great Lakes BioBlitz, there were multiple options that showed. So you don't even have to type in the full name. You can just search for the name that matches up with the different groups that Marty shared earlier.
iNaturalist is so smart, it can read your mind and knows what project you're looking for. So Stuart is wondering, is there a way to contribute to iNaturalist if you don't have access to a phone or a camera phone right now?
You will need to have internet access in order to, so on a computer, in order to submit photographic images. There are also ways to do other kinds of data. I know that you can take recordings, sound recordings, and upload them as well. And there may be ways to just make a note and mention what you observed.
Great. So photos are maybe the easiest thing to submit, but there might be other ways to do sort of text-based observations. That's very helpful. Stuart is also wondering about looking for creatures and plants and wild living things in parks. Do you, in Minnesota, are people able to get into the parks near them right now?
I know that the state parks, at least a week ago, were still open. I am not certain what the status is now. There are a lot of other open spaces though. I did see in Geneva, maybe you're going to get to this one, but I did see someone make a comment that right now there are 0 observations in the projects. So the reason that there are 0 observations in the projects right now is that the BioBlitz hasn't started. And so when it becomes April 22nd, all of a sudden observations are going to start rolling in. And so right now you won't see any because if you will, there's a placeholder there on iNaturalist where the project is, but it isn't turned on yet. So it can't actually collect any information. The other piece I'd like to share about it is some of the project pages are still under construction, but by Earth Day, April 22nd, they will all be ready to roll.
Great. So keep an eye on that over the next few days and things will keep changing. So it is 11 o'clock right now, my friends. So I think we're going to end our Q&A right there. I am going to put one more URL into the chat. It is to a really cool video about biodiversity. So if anybody is curious about exploring that topic some more that we learned about today, go ahead and grab that video URL. We'll also make sure it's in the YouTube comments when this video goes up online. We just want to thank you so much, Marty, for joining us today. It was really awesome to learn about the BioBlitz and the ways that people can make observations in their own backyards, whether those observations are just for themselves and their own understanding, or whether they're getting up into iNaturalist and telling people all over the world what kind of cool nature is in their own spot. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We will be back on Tuesday and Thursday next week with more Homes at Home. And don't forget, you can always find archived episodes up on Michigan Sea Grant's YouTube channel or on our Homes at Home webpage. Thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll talk to you again next week.